Okay, welcome. Today I want to talk about the energy crisis, the cost of living crisis, and how that links into the trauma of our leaders and especially their education, and how this is a hypothesis, how I feel we can really link the struggles that we're currently having in especially the UK, but the world as well, due to the trauma that is coming from our leaders. So enjoy. Okay, so I am just starting to prepare for the interview with Nick Duffell, which is in 3 weeks' time. And I am speaking to this man, Robert Verkuyk, in a couple of weeks. How English Public Schools Ruin Britain. I've not read it yet. I've basically been reading Nick Duffell's book here, Wounded Leaders. And what I want to do is just cover some points where I feel at the moment in the UK, and I think globally from what I'm hearing, there is an energy crisis, cost of living crisis, and there is a food crisis, a poverty crisis. So some of the figures are that the average UK household at the moment is 19 days away from poverty, a new research has shown. So what that means is if I was to lose my job, or average household was to lose their job, within 19 days, they would not be able to feed themselves anymore. So that's basically nearly just under 3 weeks. And I have heard also figures, I think in the Parliament, Labour leader questioning Conservatives, saying that I think it's 5 million people currently in the UK are eating less a day, so they're skipping a meal because they can't afford it. And I think it's 10 million people who are currently, I think their figures, I've not found this again, but are in poverty. So it's like about 10 million, so that's 1 in 6 in this country. I was also speaking to someone on my podcast, Sean Chamberlain, and he said that 10 years ago it was 25,000 people were using food banks. Now it's 2.5 million in the UK, 2.5 million. And it's not just people who are unemployed, it's people who have jobs because the cost of living has risen. But let's balance that out, is that I've just been looking at some figures that there's a few things here, is that currently companies are reporting record profits. So the average household is very close to poverty, but the companies, so BP for example, their first quarter was the most they've earned in profit in more than a decade. Shell, the first 2 quarters, second quarter was 11.5 billion profit. I think that's doubled from last year. And the first quarter was 9 billion profit. And they're saying this is the biggest profit since 2008. And I kind of shocked a bit because 2008 was the recession. So what I'm trying to say here is that although we're being told, right, prices have got to go up because of Russia or things like this, actually these companies are earning even more money. And someone was pointing out that last 30 years, most global companies have been earning 5% profit. This last year, they've been earning 9% profit. So the prices are going up, but they're earning more money. So it's not as if, it's just a total kind of doesn't make any sense. So I wanted to link this into trauma because I feel, and this is the this idea that our leaders are not here, as we can see by those figures, for the people. And I just want to outline 5 points that Nick Duffell talks about in Wounded Leaders, is that why we can draw the energy crisis, the cost of living, the food crisis, down to our leaders. And as Nick Duffell says, it's top down. Everything that we do in this country, the UK, but I'm also seeing that the power of the UK in the world, the amount of clout that it has, financial institutions, the financial center really of the world is London. It is a real center point. So the first point, which kind of links into this really, is that there are 5 reasons that ex-boarders, especially early boarders, do not develop qualities necessary for good leadership. And why I bring this in, if you've not seen my videos before, is that there are a high percentage of people in positions of power who have been boarding school. So Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Richard Branson, head of MI6, the head of the English Church, head of a lot of these companies. So all vulnerability is seen as threatening. This is the first thing. Okay, so this means that they are incapable of admitting mistakes or making long-term decisions for the common good. For me, profits, this is profits of the few. It's not for the common good. This is not for the people who are going to really struggle, especially this winter as prices are going up. So that's the first thing. In summary, short-term survival based off self-interest dominated solutions are the direct opposite of the qualities that today's leaders need. So that's the first thing. Second thing is about emotions. Nick Duffell talks about why they don't make good leaders is they have difficulty with emotions. And basically what he's saying is that humans cannot take good decisions when, as a result of either physical lesion or psychological disassociation processes, their feeling and emotions are not fully accessible to them. So as an ex-boarder, that is one of the common traits of trauma, is dissociation. They can't access their feelings. Nick Duffell talks about this, but if you read Bessel van der Kolk's work, talk about this idea of difficulty in accessing feeling. What he's saying is that these leaders that can't make good decisions, and again, these profits of these companies, that's not a good decision for the good of the people, in my opinion. This is just a hypothesis. Third thing to talk about is about left hemispheres. In these schools, we learn left hemisphere, so it's all very analytical. It's but there's not the right brain of intuition. And he's saying basically that a purely left brain hemisphere bias presents a person with a conceptual world in which people may easily be treated as if they were objects, and wider contexts are ignored in favor of compartmentalized thinking. That's a huge, which people may easily be treated as if they were objects. If someone who's in leadership had a real heart, would they allow these companies to make this money while people are starving? And it's not to necessarily blame them but just look at that. People may easily be treated as if they were objects. That's why I feel we need to really analyze this and do something about this. That's the third point. The fourth point is it's to do with the combination of all these thinking, feeling, and behavior impediments crystallize into an excessively defensive attitude to life. What that basically means is that they fear attack and unmasking, both consciously, as in its strategic maneuvers, and unconsciously, as frequently revealed in dreams and anxiety attacks. It predicts threat where there may be none, closes the door to intimate approaches, and in the case there may be threats, handles the resultant stress very badly. When this personality type senses challenge to its survival, it reacts instantly with aggression and frequently bullying rather than calmness, curiosity, and self-reflection. So when we go, hey, you know what? there's an energy crisis here, or there's a food crisis. I've seen this in this last week, politicians speaking to the press saying it's the poor people, they need to be spending less energy. It's the poor people, they shouldn't be eating this as much food. So they are blaming everybody else rather than taking responsibility. And what Nick Duffell says, this is a common cause, and this comes from this trauma that these ex-boarders are carrying. He calls it the entitled brain. And because this personality type is the forerunner of what I call the entitled brain, it cannot conceive that it might be a problem within itself. Clearly, politics can be an attractive arena for such personalities. So, they can't admit mistakes. They can't go, oh, yeah, okay, I messed up. Let's do something about it. And then the fifth point, he talks about the Rational Man project, which basically saying that is, comes out of the British Empire, this idea of rational, that, it's very much the thinking. So what he says, this is my name for the extreme Cartesian view of the world, which achieved enormous gains for Western civilizations and became the dominant cultural mindset, which I feel we still have. He says, although it's been well documented in the history of science and philosophy, it has been rarely examined psychologically. I believe that it actually produces weakness rather than strength in the long run. Whatever does not count as rational, women, children, and foreigners, especially indigenous people, is made into an object of derision and loathing. So it's like, oh my God. And I would suggest as well, and he talks about this in other areas, is that the working class, this projection, he calls it the inner indigenous. It's like, because they've suppressed that within themselves, it's like they loathe and hate that within others, weakness, vulnerability. And that is why, I'm producing this film. It's like, it needs to be out there. To be asking these questions, are these people who we really need to be leading us? And I would question, well, no, that's but I would like to just connect with the science, connect with the psychology to go, and looking at the current world, I'm seeing we do not have leaders who are really supporting, nurturing, loving their constituents, with so many on the poverty line, struggling with the energy crisis, famine. Just some ideas there. Please do tell me what you think, and please do share this, and I'll put it into the description. The film, if you are interested in supporting that, it might be sharing it or leaving a donation. We're not at that point yet. We're just kind of starting to film the trailer, which we're doing in a few weeks, and then we're going to start, is there a market for this? And I feel then a movement, because something needs to change, and very quickly. So yes, thank you, thank you for listening. Okay, blessings.